Welcome to tonight's live stream. I am going to get started in a minute. I just need to let everybody on social media know that the stream is getting started. Okay, just let everybody on social media know that the show is going on, and I'm going to get into tonight's perfunctory. Now, I'm going to talk about the two books in the SJS Direct 2021 catalog, Isis Legacy and Eastern Horror of the Hyena Woman. You can get both of these books in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com right now. And I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of the two SJS Direct 2021 books because I want to work hard for some weekend book sales. And I'd appreciate it if you guys would pick up some of my positive black fiction on Amazon.com. Hoping to have these books on Smashwords and Google Play soon. So if you want to use those platforms, these books will be coming there soon. Now, we want to give everybody an update on John Haynes at Death's Door, and I've made a lot of progress on John Haynes at Death's Door comic. And I just got the art back from Antonio Balderi this week, and I also have gone and hired a letterer to start lettering John Haynes at Death's Door. So the book is on its way to becoming completed for the upcoming Kickstarter. And I've already done a pre-release page, so you can check out the pre-release page and sign up for it so you can know when the John Haynes at Death's Door comic comes to Kickstarter. So I've got 20 people already signed up for the Kickstarter mailing list, and you can sign up for it too by clicking the link in the chat. So now with all of that perfunctory practically taken care of as related to my books, Isis Legacy, Eastern Horror of the Hyena Woman, and John Haynes at Death's Door's comic, I'm going to get into tonight's topic. Now, tonight's topic is based on the tragic mass shooting that took place at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. And in that tragic incident that took place at the Tops supermarket, we saw how white supremacists took advantage of the kindness of all of the black people in that Buffalo suburb. Now, this kindness that black people have for whites and non-blacks, this is an Achilles heel that has led to many black people winding up in situations where we lose our lives. Now, black people, we have a problem in being too kind to whites and non-blacks. And because we are too kind to whites and non-blacks, many white supremacists and enemies of the black community see that as a weakness they can exploit. Now, the foundations of this weakness that black people have has to do with slavery. Now, back in the days of slavery, many black people were raised and conditioned to submit to the authority of whites, and because they were raised to submit to the authority of white people. Some people see them as gods, others see them as people who have more power than they do. And due to this mental conditioning, they believe that white people have power, and they also believe that other non-blacks have more power than they are. And this was reinforced by the pseudo-Christian religion that the white supremacists taught most of the slaves. So most of the slaves, because they were conditioned to submit to white supremacist authority, and they were pacified with pseudo-Christian religion, not the true word of God, but pseudo-Christian religion. They believe in being passive in the face of situations, and they think that being passive will gain them acceptance and approval by whites and non-blacks. So many of your black people, they think that being this kind person will allow them to gain favor and approval with your whites and non-blacks, and they never think to question these individuals based on the content of their character. Because they're so desperate to gain the acceptance of others, what they do is they show how weak they are, because many of these black folks, what they do is they're willing to sacrifice their intangibles as related to their character in order to gain favor and approval with your whites and non-blacks. And this is part of what I call the spellbound mindset that I talk about in my novel Spellbound. Now, in my novel Spellbound, I talk about how many black folks will do anything to fit into a black box that's acceptable to white people. And many black people, they have been conditioned to do anything to fit into that box, including in sacrificing their intangibles as related to their character. Now, these sacrifices of intangibles as related to character are very dangerous, because what I've seen is you've got black people who don't understand the concept of boundaries, because they are so obsessed with gaining acceptance with whites and non-blacks and value them over themselves. They are willing to sacrifice their intangibles of character, such as their dignity, their self-respect, and their self-worth. And even in some extreme cases, they are even willing to sacrifice their own lives to gain the acceptance and approval of these whites and non-blacks. That is what's most troubling about your black Americans. In a lot of cases, they go out here and they're willing to sacrifice these most important intangibles just because some white or non-black person has come into their community. And that's what's happened with the Tops mass shooter. He took advantage of that whole situation in that community in Buffalo. He got on and drove his car 200 miles into that community because he knew that black people, in a lot of cases, especially older black people, they have extremely low self-esteem. And he knew that he could just come in there and capitalize and take advantage of black people's low self-esteem and gain their favor, try to gain their attention. Because what happens is, in these cases, most of the black people, because they're so spellbound by a white or a non-black person, they are looking to get social acceptance from these whites and non-blacks, and they'll do anything to gain their attention and approval. And that's where our kindness really gets exploited, because these predators know that you'll do anything to gain their approval. And the thing that you're doing when you do that is show how weak you are, because your willingness to go out here and get that acceptance shows you have no real respect for yourself. And that makes you vulnerable to predators like your white supremacists and your racists. Now, and you have people who understand their own worth and value, one of the things that they do is they set boundaries for themselves. So when a person respects and values themselves, what they do is they set a boundary whenever they get involved with someone, especially during the first moments of initial contact. So when you have people with healthy self-esteem, they establish these imaginary lines on the ground and let people know they are not going to go but so far. And the brother of logic and common sense, he went in depth on this in one of his classic videos where he talked about establishing territory. Now, the brother of logic and common sense, in that classic video, he talked about the whole concept of territory and why it's important to establish territory. Because when you have territory, you have a hard line in the ground that lets people know how far they can go. When you have control over your territory, you are controlling who can come into your territory and the terms that they can use to come into your territory. And this is something that is done in communities all across the country, whether they be white or non-black. If you go into those communities, there are hard territorial lines that let you know where a neighborhood stops and where a neighborhood starts. And when you enter into that territory, there are unwritten social rules for you to follow when you are in that territory. And in those territories, the people there are going to let you know what the rules are as related to their territory and how you can engage in that territory. That is how communities have been run ever since the start of the civilization. Unfortunately, this was something that many in the Black community did not learn because they were conditioned under white supremacy to submit to the white man. And they believe that because the white man has all of this power and authority, they can come into Black territory and do whatever they please. This was something that was an Achilles heel for many Black towns after the Reconstruction, and this was the Achilles heel that led to the destruction of Black towns like Rosewood and Black Wall Street. Black men and Black women did not establish their territory and establish boundaries for their territory. And because they allowed whites to walk in freely into their territory, what happened was those whites used that lack of a boundary to be an Achilles heel to exploit and take advantage of so that they could go out here and wage war on those Black people. And that's what they did when they made allegations against against a Black man, saying that he violated a white woman, and they used this as a justification for destroying Rosewood and Black Wall Street and terrorizing the members of those towns. This was done because, sadly, while Black people had gone out here and built their own community, built their own economy, they did not establish a hard line of territory, nor did they go out here and find ways to protect their territory. Because when you have a community, the first thing you do when you build your community is you have to think about how you're going to protect that community. And that's something many foundational Black Americans have not really thought about critically. They have not really thought about how are we going to protect our territory. That's a mistake we have made because we've always gone out here and thought, oh, we're American citizens, and since the white people run things, they are going to protect our territory. That's a major mistake because you cannot rely on others to protect your territory. No, you have to set boundaries and protect your territory, and you have to establish the terms for how your territory will be protected. And that's something many foundational Black Americans have not really grasped on as a concept. And again, because they haven't grasped on this, people come into Black communities and they come into Black communities without ever being vetted or ever have a question asked to them. So you could have a white person or a non-Black person walk straight into a Black neighborhood, and not a single person will ask a single question of why is this individual here? What is their purpose? And what intentions do they have here? Not a single person will ask that question. But if that same foundational Black American were to go into a white community, an Arab community, an Indian community, an Asian community, they would be asking that question first. And if those Black people walked into that neighborhood, they would be given looks, and then there would be somebody there to approach them, whether it be a store owner, whether it be a person in the community. Somebody's going to ask them some hard questions before they venture further into their community. That's how communities establish their boundaries. That's how communities establish their first line of protection. And they do this because they don't want invaders coming into their community looking to do harm. Unfortunately, Black Americans have not understood the concept of territory. They don't understand the concept of boundaries, and they don't understand why it's important to establish lines in the sand, because those lines in the sand are lines that show people that you value yourself, you value your community, you value the people in your community, and you are going to establish a standard for your community, and you are going to establish a standard for your quality of life. That is what establishing territory is all about. It's about establishing a standard for living for everyone, and it's about establishing a standard where you are going to set the terms for the Black community. Unfortunately, many Black people don't understand these concepts because during the days of the civil rights movement, we were still caught up in this whole quest for social acceptance. And again, this quest for social acceptance is all about gaining attention and approval of whites and non-Blacks. And it's all about sacrificing to get that attention and approval, and saying that that attention and approval has more value than even a Black life. So many, especially older Blacks, believe that the attention of whites and non-Blacks is more valuable than even their lives, and they're willing to even put their lives on the line just to gain attention and approval from whites and non-Blacks. And this again is us going out here and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, and this makes it where your community can be infiltrated and be exploited by enemies of your community. So this is something many Black people really have not really sat down and thought about. But when I looked at the whole case of the Tops mass shooting, I really thought about the whole problem that Black people have had, and the brother of logic and common sense has talked about territory. And again, I recommend you go see that video because it's important for us to understand the concept of territory, because when you don't have boundaries that let people know what the rules are, what the standards are for your community, you are putting yourself in danger, because if anybody can come into your community, then anybody can just do whatever they please in your community. Because when you let anybody come in and you don't vet people, you're allowing all sorts of crime, vice, and violence to come into your community. And this is one of the core reasons why the Black community has so many problems as related to crime, drugs, and all other issues. And that is because we don't have hard territorial lines, because we're out here trying to be kind to people who are our enemies. And that, again, is a major mistake. You're trying to be kind to people who have nothing but dislike for you, and I dare to say have nothing but contempt and hatred for you. You're looking to gain the hatred, the kindness of these people. You're trying to call yourself showing them love, but these people don't love you, don't accept you, and really don't want to see you live. And that's the mistake that most Black Americans make, is thinking, oh, I can go and try to be the friends of these white racists, these white supremacists, and these other non-Black racists, and they will accept me and approve of me, when in actuality, all you're doing is being tolerated. And this is another mistake that many of foundational Black Americans make as related to kindness as weakness, is they think that any attention is good attention. They think that because the white racist or the white supremacist or the non-Black, racist is paying them attention, that that things are going good as related to things. But most of the times, these people are just tolerating you because you are an ends to a means, and they are just seeing you as a tool they can use to get from point A to point B. So they look at most of these so-called friendly, kind Black folks who are trying to be helpful as useful idiots. And that's what happened, sadly, at the Tops supermarket, when one of the Black men, who was an older Black man, confronted that mass shooter. And when he confronted that mass shooter, he, instead of asking the hard questions I have been asked when I go into other communities, which is, why are you here? What are you looking for? I mean, these are the kind of questions I get asked as a Black man if I go into another person's neighborhood, whether it be Washington Heights or I go into some other parts of the other neighborhoods. You're going to get asked some hard questions by people because they know that if you're here, that you need to have a purpose for being here. But Black people, we don't ask those questions of people who come into our community. No, a lot of us buy into the whole pseudo-Christian concept of being open, having open arms, and so-called showing love to others, not understanding that love is only shown when people show you respect. And this is a big problem with Black folks, is they keep looking to get love from other people, looking to gain validation from other people, looking to gain approval from other people, and never once demanding respect, because respect is the core foundation of love. But these people, they are looking to get their emotional needs met, not understanding that territorial lines are about protecting a culture and a community and protecting an economic base. When you have a territorial line, it lets people know how far they can engage and how far they can go out here and operate in your area. Unfortunately, Black folks don't let people know where the line is, and that was shown with the Tops mass shooter. How one of the Black guys who confronted him asked him why he was there. He talked about how he was homeless, ran a sad story, and then he went out here, bought this guy a drink, not understanding this guy was putting a target on his back and was basically plotting to murder everyone there. There was no love with the Tops mass shooter. No love at all. But we had people who were believing the passive version of that pseudo-Christian religion and not understanding that when you are a follower of God, you have faith in the Most High, but you also understand that there are boundaries that need to be set on how you want to be treated. Because again, the first commandment is love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength. And the second commandment is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you love yourself, you are going to set boundaries with people, and you are going to establish terms for how you are going to be treated in their presence. Because if you love yourself, you're not going to allow anybody to come into your personal space or your territory and just do whatever they please. And if you love yourself, you're not going to allow somebody to come into your community and look to do harm to you. No, part of love is setting boundaries, and part of love is letting people know that they're going to treat you in the way you want to be treated, and you are going to treat them in the way you would want to be treated. And part of loving yourself, and again, loving your neighbor, is treating your neighbor with respect and also demanding respect from them, not just sitting there and being passive like many have been taught by the black pastor who teaches you to, oh, just sit there and take stuff. But taking stuff, it doesn't mean that you have to tolerate disrespect. And the whole thing is that most black people, again, they have been taught this pseudo-Christian religion where they've been taught to be passive and tolerate things when sometimes you just can't tolerate people going and believing they can do whatever they please to you. I mean, nobody has a right to push a person all the way to the wall, but sadly, we've got a whole 2 to 3 generations of black people who have been taught just tolerate whatever, and you're doing this just to get some acceptance. And again, we're not looking to gain the acceptance of men, white or non-black. We're supposed to be looking for the acceptance of the Most High, and we're supposed to be looking to do his work on earth. And again, in order to do his work, we have to meet his standards. And the sad part is, this is not what your black pastor teaches, but this was the religion that the black pastor, the passive religion, is just sit there and tolerate things. And again, sitting there and tolerating things is just being weak. And again, when you're weak like this, it just puts you in a really bad position, because people are going to take advantage of you. And people have taken advantage of black people's kindness for many years. And it's about time black people started realizing that we have to stop being kind to those who are cruel to us. We have to start understanding our value to the Most High, our value to ourselves, and understand our worth as people. Because when you understand your worth and your value to God, because God loves you and he loves you so much that he sent his son to sacrifice his life on the cross, you have a great value, and you have to understand your worth. And that is what, when you read the Bible for yourself, you want to start to understand. And again, many black people, they buy into the concepts of white supremacy, and they believe that your white supremacist is a god, but he's not a god, he's a man, and God is not a man. That's the other part, that many of the black people who take kindness out here and allow it to be their Achilles heel, they go out here and think your white or a non-black person is a god, and because they believe that they're a god, they believe that they have to give them deference. And this is, again, a thing that leads to us being exploited by enemies who are looking to wage war on us. And that's something we really need to think about as related to how we interact with whites and non-blacks, because if you sit there and deify other people, they are not going to see you as somebody they respect. Because if they see you out here looking to gain their favor and are looking to sacrifice your dignity, your self-respect, your self-worth, what that does is tell that person they don't need to respect you, they don't need to regard you, and again, they don't see you as anybody worth dealing with. And this is the great irony here, is with most of these black bootlicks, they don't really understand this. They're sitting there thinking, oh, if I go out here and I buck dance, I bojangle, I kowtow, I bootlick these whites and non-blacks, they will give me favor. But the irony is, if they stood up, they would actually gain more respect. But they don't want to do this because they fear reprisal. And this is the big problem with many of Black Americans. Again, they want to be kind and friendly. They want to think that if they go out here and are really compassionate, this will set an example for others that will allow them to see them as respectable. And this is a covert contract that is never fulfilled, because the minute you start showing deference to someone, they don't need to respect you. Once you lower your value to others, what you are doing is sending a message to them that they don't need to respect you. And again, that's another part of that Achilles heel that Black people have had for over 4 centuries, thinking, oh, if I'm this polite and friendly person, I will get the favor of these whites and non-Blacks, and they will let me into their community with open arms. And no, they're not going to let you in, because you've already, put yourself at the bottom. And since they have put you at the bottom, that you have basically put yourself at the bottom, nobody needs to regard you at all, because you're coming from a position of weakness and thinking, oh, if I come in weak, they will regard me and accept me. But no, they don't see you as anybody they respect at all, because you don't respect yourself. Because again, healthy people set lines in the sand, and they set hard lines in the sand because they understand that if I do not set hard lines in the sand, people are going to come in and think they can do whatever they please. I mean, I go back to a talking point the brother of logic and common sense made as related to about territory. And he said something about his car, and he's not going to let anybody do things in his vehicle. He sets the tone for how you are going to behave in his vehicle, and that is the way Black people have to set as related to their own community. In order for you to have a community, you have to set rules for how people behave in your community, and you have to set those rules because this is going to send a message to everybody that this is how you are going to carry and conduct yourself when you are in this territory. Moreover, you are sending a message to everybody that they have to respect your rules. And when you send that message, that's when you start to get respect, because you know you cannot do whatever you want. Now, when you look at the Black community, again, we have no territorial lines. We have that were set by us. We have no rules for engagement in the community, and we have no standard. And that is why people come to our community and they exploit our community. And when these enemies come into your community, they are not looking to go out here and make build bridges with you. They're looking to exploit your community, take its resources, and take the best resources back to their community. And this is what happens when you don't have strong leadership to set the boundaries. And we have a problem with our politicians and our so-called leaders. And we saw that with your Al Sharpton when he was sitting down at one of these MSNBC shows, and he's sitting there not talking about boundaries as related to the community. No, he's sitting there talking about, oh, we need to go set a coalition with all of these other minorities, and not saying, hey, you are not going to come into a Black community and disrespect a Black community. And one of the big problems we have is we've got a lot of these weak, bootlicking clowns in the Black community, and they're looking to make compromises with those outside of the community in order to be able to profit for themselves at the expense of the quality of life for foundational Black Americans. Because in any other community, a bootleg like an Al Sharpton would have been shown the door, because they would have gone out here and created compromises that would have breached the boundaries of the territory and allowed enemies to exploit the community. Unfortunately, most Black Americans, again, because our heads are not in the right place, we're not thinking about going out here and excommunicating most of these bootlicks like an Al Sharpton and his ilk, and establishing our own boundaries and establishing our own leadership to protect our community from those enemies that are within, who would go out here and make deals with enemies outside of the community. And because, again, you don't have that strong leadership there in Black men and Black women to say, hey, no, these are the rules for this community, what happens is that these individuals go out here and, again, make these backdoor deals, and these backdoor deals create breaches that people can go out here and exploit. And that's why we have a Black community where we don't control any of the businesses, we don't control much of the economy, and that's all due to us not having, one, strong territorial lines, two, strong leadership, and three, us having a hard boundary for our community. So that's all due to the mindset of Black Americans. And again, that kindness mindset, which is what I call the nice guy approach. This is why the Black community has been finishing last for the last 60 years, because Black Americans have been taught from the civil rights movement to be the nice guy and try to be the better so-called example who turns the other cheek, goes out here and tries to be nice and tries to be so-called forgiving, and that all of these behaviors are detrimental to Black Americans when you are dealing with an enemy who is waging war on you. And that's what happened at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. We had a, what I call, race soldier waging war on foundational Black Americans. And because these foundational Black Americans' mindset wasn't in the right place, they were looking to accept an enemy in with open arms. And this enemy was looking to do harm to Black people. And this enemy was looking to kill Black people. But those Black people were looking for a friend from an enemy. And that's a major mistake, looking for a friend with somebody who is trying to kill you. I mean, nobody in any other community is sitting there talking about being friends with an enemy. No, they are establishing hard territorial lines with that enemy, and they are letting that enemy know, you are not coming into our territory, and if you do come into this territory, we will defend ourselves. And we didn't get that type of talk from our so-called Black leaders who were sitting there talking about going to run and hide in the event of a mass shooting. And again, that's cowardly talk, because you can't sit there and think about running and hiding. You have to come in and say, no, we're not allowing this individual to come into our community, because if we went into their community, we would not get the same response, because they don't see us as kind. No, they see us as an enemy. And I have grown up and seen incidents like Michael Griffith in Howard Beach. When he went to Howard Beach in Far Rockaway, Queens, what happened was he was not received very friendly. No, what he was him and his friend got beat down. And sadly, Michael Griffith got chased onto the Belt Parkway, where he was hit by a car. And again, that's what happens when you step into other people's territory and you're dealing with these white supremacists right here in this blue state of New York. And the same thing happened to Yusuf Hawkins in 1989. When your Yusuf Hawkins came into a predominantly white Bensonhurst at the time, and he was just looking to buy a used car, he ran into these individuals who were looking to, again, terrorize him, to send a message not to step into their territory, because that's what happened in Howard Beach and Bensonhurst. They were looking to establish hard territorial lines by participating in what I call acts of terror. They were looking to send a message, do not come back here. And we don't understand what that at all. I mean, these incidents that I'm talking about, they happened 30 plus years ago. And we've still got, again, a lot of black folks still looking to be kind and friendly and coming into other people's neighborhoods when those same people that you're coming into their neighborhood, they're calling the cops on you. They're looking to ask you questions. But when they come to your community, they go out here and sit there and say, oh, we should be able to come into your community and do whatever we please. And I have to say no to that, because if you're having a territory, again, you have to establish hard lines for that territory. And that's something most foundational Black Americans, we really have not understood this concept. We have not really grasped this concept. We talk about building a community, but part of building a community is protecting a community. And the first line of protection, again, is setting a hard line and letting everybody know this is as far as you go. And if you come past this line, you have to follow these rules. That's how every community outside of the Black community works. But the Black community, we have a lot of people, again, with low self-esteem, low self-worth, and they're looking to gain social acceptance. And the sad part is they are so desperate to gain social acceptance, they are willing to do this, and they're willing to sacrifice their life to gain social acceptance. And that's something that we really need to think about. We really need to think, hey, is me going out here and getting a smile or a hug from a white man or a non-Black man worth more than my dignity, my self-respect, and even my freedom and my life? That's a critical question I'm asking everybody, because that's what we saw in Buffalo. That's the behavior we saw. People willing to sacrifice their intangibles and even their lives just so they could go out here and be Mr. Nice Guy to some white supremacist mass shooter who was looking to, again, he was casing the entire neighborhood out, drove 200 miles to go murder people, and they're thinking, oh, I'll just give him a loving gesture. And this is not the first time Black people have made this mistake. No, the same thing happened with Dylan Roof. They were looking to be open to him and thinking that, oh, we're doing this so-called Christian thing and letting him in. But the whole thing is, if you keep doing these kinds of things, all you're doing is putting a target on your back, because I guarantee you in any other community's church, they are not letting you come into their church and just walking in like wanting to do whatever you please. I mean, that's not how other communities operate. And that's something Black people really have to think about, because, again, our kindness is being seen as weakness, and these weaknesses are what people are exploiting to go out here and do harm to Black people. Now, the reason why they can come in, again, is because we have, again, that low self-esteem and that lack of confidence, but we have to start gaining confidence in ourselves and start saying our value as people, because we have to understand that we are God's creations, we are God's work, and we deserve to have a life just like everybody else. And we have to start saying that to ourselves. We have to start saying that our life has just as much value as anybody's life, and we're not going to sell ourselves short looking to gain favor and approval from those who are just basically opportunists looking to capitalize on a situation. Now, this lack of boundaries, again, looking for kindness, I've seen this done in many of these grocery stores owned by different groups. And with the Chinese restaurant, you'll see Black people looking to be friends with the owners, hoping to gain favor. And they're not looking at how these people are exploiting you. They're not looking at it, hey, this guy has come into my territory, opened up a business in my territory, and they are in here taking money out of my community, enriching themselves at my expense, living a middle-class lifestyle, while Black people are struggling to make a dollar. I mean, that's what happens when you don't respect yourself you allow others to come into your community and profit at your expense. And that's what happens with the Korean hair and nail salon. That's what happens with the Arab corner grocery store, or the Latino bodega, or the Indian owned fast food franchise. All of these businesses come into your community because you don't have hard boundaries, and many of the codependent black folks, because they're looking to gain the acceptance of these non-blacks, what they do is look to be friends with these people, not understanding these people are only here to make money off you, and they make money off of your kindness because they see you as weak, and they see you as an easy way to enrich themselves as they go out here and live the American dream. Meanwhile, if you were to go as a black person to one of these banks, asked to open up your own business or franchise, you wouldn't be allowed that ability to empower yourself economically or employ your own people and allow them to make profit in your community. That's the most backwards thing about Black America's inability to establish boundaries. Other people can come into a Black community, start building businesses, and then they can go out here and build a middle class or upper middle class lifestyle at the expense of those same Black people. But that only happens when your Black people don't establish territorial lines and they don't have a standard to protect their Black community. When there's no Black leadership to say, hey, if you come into my community and you want to open up a business, you have to be able to make it where we can get empowerment as related to that business. So if you were to go to a white or a non-Black community and you opened up a business, one of the things they're going to insist on is, you want to open up a store in my business, you're going to have to employ the people in my community, and you're going to have to give the local people jobs to work there. So that means that the money is staying in the community and it ain't going out of the community at a rapid pace. So that's one of the things that if we were to open up a business in another neighborhood, they're going to insist that their people are the ones working at that business, or else that business isn't coming to their community. They're going to insist that that the manager of that business is going to be one of their people in their community. They're going to insist the assistant manager is one of those people, and they're going to insist that the only people working here are going to be insiders so that the money stays inside the community. Yes, you'll be able to make a little bit of a profit there, but they're going to make sure that they profit as well. That is what happens in every other community economically. But in the Black community, we don't have people to set boundaries like that because many of our so-called leaders and activists, these bootlicks, are compromised. And once they get their crumbs from these masters' tables, they don't care about how anybody else is doing. That is why why the Black community is the poorest in the United States, in spite of 50 years or 60 years of the civil rights movement. I mean, when it came down to affirmative action, it was supposed to be a program so Black men could get jobs, but because we had weak Black leadership, what they did was compromise and allow white women to get all of the jobs, and a handful of Black women got a few smattering of jobs, and that made it where the Black economy was not able to grow. So that's again what happens when you don't have hard territorial lines and you don't know how to set boundaries and you don't know how to set rules for your community or set order for your community. And that's a big problem again, because Black people put their emotions in place of logic as related to business decisions. And again, protecting a community is something that is logical and requires critical thinking. But most of your Black Americans have been taught to be emotional and see dealing with other races and other communities as something that you do as related to being social. No, this is a business transaction. And in a business transaction, it is about establishing hard terms and establishing hard standards that will be followed and, more importantly, enforced by leadership. And that's another problem. Again, we have a lot of guys who want to be kind and friendly and want to be social as related to serious issues, and there is no kindness or social as related to people when you're dealing with a serious situation. Again, when you have enemies who are out to exploit you, or waging war on you, you do not deal with an enemy waging war as a friend. No, there are diplomatic channels, and again, in a diplomatic channel, things are done in a serious manner, and things are done in a serious manner to let people know that you are taken seriously. Unfortunately, the whole kind pseudo-Christian approach that many Black people use, this is what undermines us as a people, because people who you're dealing with see you as weak outside of the community, and because they see you as weak, what they do is they go out here and see this as an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. So that's one of the other problems we have, again, about being so kind, is we're looking to build alliances and coalitions. And again, that's coming from a position of weakness, because it's saying that you don't have the self-esteem or the self-confidence to stand on your own. And that's why I really got angry about Al Sharpton's little BS statement where he was talking about going to Washington and talking about a coalition. That's coward talk. No, if we're talking about issues as related to Black people, then it's going to be Black people standing alone and Black people standing and making demands all by ourselves. That's how men go out here and operate. That's how leaders go out here and operate. They have a specific focus, they have specific demands, and they say, look, this is for Black people, not for anybody else. There's no talk of minorities, there's no talk of coalitions. No, that's what cowards go out here and do, looking to hide behind other people. And then as those people are out here standing with them, they're looking for those people to speak for them. And again, that's something that weak people go out here and do because they don't know how to stand up for themselves. No, strong people who understand healthy boundaries, they understand that they're going to be the ones doing the speaking, and they're the ones who are going to say what they want specifically, because if you don't say exactly what you want, then you're not going to get anything tangible at all. And one of the other big problems about this whole kindness approach is you have Black folks with these covert contracts, and they're looking to make covert contracts with other so-called minorities. And as they're looking to make these covert contracts with other minorities, they're hoping that this person will say what they want to say. They're hoping that after this person talks, somebody may figure out what they want, and it's related to tangibles. And that whole approach is one like a female has, because females look for you to try to figure out what they want without ever saying what they want. And that's not how it works when you're out here in the real world. No, in the real world, you have to be specific about what you want. You have to be specific about whatever you're asking for. You have to be specific about what you're demanding. And you have to be serious when you're out here and set it. Again, being serious means you are going to say, this is how things are going to get done. This is what we need done. And this is how it's going to be. Again, when you run in a community, you are going to establish those hard territorial lines. You're going to have strong leadership because you're going to be serious. And there's nothing about being kind to people. You're not looking to gain brownie points with people, especially enemies, and you're not looking to gain favor with those who are disrespectful of you. There is no looking to, turn the other cheek and be nice with a guy who's looking to beat the crap out of you or possibly kill you. No, there's going to be, if you come over here with that mess, you are going to be dealt with, and you're going to be dealt with in the same way that you want to deal with me. And again, That's how every other community works. If you come into somebody else's community looking to do harm, you are going to be looking at down the barrel of some weapons. I guarantee you, if a black mass shooter came into a white or non-black neighborhood, he would be looking down the barrel of some weapons, and that would be the end of him as related to things. But black people, we again looking to be kind, looking to be nice, looking to be open, not understanding when you're open and vulnerable, you make yourself a target because people look at you as weak, they look at you as stupid, they look at you as naive, they look at you as somebody they can go out here and take advantage of. And that's what happens to black people when they go out here with this kindness approach that I believe has been cultivated ever since slavery and been conditioned in the people since the 1960s civil rights movement by these failed black leaders, these failed black bootlicks, these failed black pastors. These individuals, they talk this message of being passive. They talk this message of being kind. They talk this message of trying to be this so-called better person. And this does not work with a white supremacist or another individual who has a deep-seated anger towards you, deep-seated hatred towards you, this whole trying to show love to a person who hates you. This is not a approach that's beneficial to black people. I get that God says love your enemies, but you show love by, again, as I see it, respecting yourself. And if you respect yourself, you're not going to allow yourself to be disrespected. And sadly, we have too many black people looking to gain social favor and what I believe to be love, because there's a lot of codependency in black people where all they're looking for is love of whites and non-blacks. And again, you're not supposed to be looking for love from other people. You're supposed to be demanding respect because, again, the foundation of love is respect. And again, if you're looking for some sort of get your emotional needs met, that's not something you do when you're building a community. No, if you're not sitting here looking for love from enemies, that's just plain stupid. I mean, you're looking for them to love you and be your friend and be kind to you. And it's like, no, I love myself. And if I love myself, I'm going to set boundaries. And if I set boundaries, I demand that these people respect my boundaries, respect my space, and treat me the way I want to be treated in my own space. And I will come to their space and treat them with the same respect. That's what respect is all about. And sadly, many foundational black Americans, we got a miseducation. And due to that miseducation in this pseudo-Christian religion, they're looking to foster codependent relationships with most of these racist and white supremacists. You have people talking about all of this so-called forgiveness. Again, forgiveness for what? This person tried to kill you. And again, the way I look at it is like you're talking all of this kindness. And again, this is something people, they look at you and they look at you as pathetic because you're sitting there looking for respect. You're sitting there looking to be liked. And again, this is another part of that Achilles heel as related to foundational black Americans. You're looking to be liked by these whites and non-blacks. And again, they don't have to like you. They don't see you as they don't see like as an important thing because like is an emotion. Like means nothing to people. And this is another Achilles heel that black people don't understand at all. I'm going to take a minute to let you guys know about my new Kickstarter, John Haynes at Death's Door, since we got 54 in the chat. And I'm asking everybody to sign up for the Kickstarter for John Haynes at Death's Door by clicking the link in the chat, because this is my new comic that I did with Antonio Baldari, and I want to try to get more followers for this comic. So I'm asking everybody to sign up for the John Haynes at Death's Door Kickstarter, and I'm hoping you guys will be donating and pledging to the Kickstarter this June, because it's coming out. We've got the lettering. What's going on, Reginald? What's going on, Soul Survivor? Glad to see you here. Computer Robots, Black Africa, Quat Man, Kevin, Non-Swirl Zone, That's right. Thank you, Kevin, for the super chat. Thank you, Soul Survivor, for the super chat. This was a topic I really wanted to talk about because it was one that, I mean, there was a sister here I wanted to get to. Queen of Virtue, glad to see you here. I really wanted to do this topic because I believe it's time for Black people to start really understanding that this whole kindness approach that we were conditioned in by white supremacists, this is something we really need to address in our community because people are taking our kindness for weakness, and this is one of the reasons why we are still at the bottom, because we are America's nice guy, and because we are America's nice guy, excuse me, the Black community finishes last. Everybody steps on us, and they step on us because we do not respect ourselves enough to establish hard boundaries for ourselves. We don't establish boundaries for our communities, and this is why our communities are rotten, because people can come into our communities and push any sort of ideas in our community, like sexual promiscuity, crime, drug addiction. They can come here because we have no standard. In any other community, there is a standard, and because there's a standard, people know they cannot behave that way in their community, but they will come to our community and behave in dysfunctional ways because we don't set a set of rules for our community. We don't set a tone for our community. We don't establish standards for our community and say, no, that's not going here. We're not doing this. This is not going to be allowed. I mean, if you went into a community of predominantly Muslim people and you went out here talking about sexual promiscuity, those men would throw you out of their community. They would not allow that to happen to especially the women of their community. And if you came into their community talking about drug use and all that, they would throw you out. Same thing if you went into a Hispanic community or any other community, they have rules of engagement, and you have to come in their community following those rules. And we have to stop being so kind and say, no, we got rules for this community. We got standards for this community. You want to come in here, you want to do business with us again, it's going to be on our terms. You're going to do things our way, or you're not going to be doing anything at all. That is what a strong community has as related to its standards. You're not going to be able to come into another territory doing your own thing like we see currently in the Black community, and you're not going to be able to walk up in any other community doing whatever you please. I mean, in the Black community, again, people come here and just do whatever they want. I mean, I've seen when I was a kid, drug dealers come into a Black community because there were no men there to really protect it. And they set up shop here and basically were able to sell their wares here. And people would come from other communities to buy their drugs because because there was nobody there to say, hey, you're not doing this business here. People would come to our community, again, practicing their vices. And that's all because there's nobody there to set territorial lines. There's no leadership to set a standard. And because there's nobody there, that we've got all of this chaos going on. And what's really sad is as this chaos is going on, we've got some weak old Black pastors and weak Black leaders sitting there talking about how they want to be friends with people who aren't looking to be our friend. All they're doing is looking to use the Black community as a space for themselves to get that stepping stone up. And after they go out here, they leave the community in a worse state than it was before. And basically, these people, as I see it, wipe their ass with the Black community because they see the Black community as nothing they need to regard. Again, that's the way many people see a nice guy. That's the way many people see a so-called nice guy. He sits there and lets people crap all over him because he wants to be liked. He wants to gain favor, not understanding the people who you're trying to gain favor with are predators, and these predators are looking to prey on someone who is weak. because that person doesn't understand their value, doesn't understand their self-worth, and that person, because they don't understand their value, sees value in others but doesn't see value in themselves. And again, that's all part of the kindness approach that makes Black people weak, and it makes them a target for predators who come into your community. Because when you don't have a standard, when you don't have lines as related to boundaries for your territory, this is the kind of weak frame of mind that allows people to come in and take advantage. And that's what's happening in the Black community right now. We have a whole lot of people with what I call a nice guy mindset, a beta male mindset, thinking that if they go out here and seek to gain favor from others, that will show their value. And I can tell you from personal experience, when you're trying to prove something to others, trying to show your value to others, that means that you've just lowered your value in those people's eyes. So it doesn't matter what you do. What you did was say, I am not worth as much, and I'm looking to gain your favor and approval. And when I look to do that, I'm giving my power away. And that is the core foundation of why many Black people are in the situation that they're in right now. Again, that whole kindness thing is them seeking favor, seeking approval, seeking validation, and thinking that this validation has more value than more important things like their life, like their dignity, like their self-respect. And again, when you sit there thinking that somebody else's view of yourself has higher value than your view of self, that is going to be the problem that leads to you looking to think, oh, I need to be nice to other people and I need to gain their favor. This is their favor is worth more than my own life. And that's what many Black men, women, and children are still being taught to this day. Somebody else's view of me is more valuable than I am. Somebody else's perception of me is more valuable than I am. Somebody else is worth more than I am. And I need to sacrifice everything that's intangible about me so that I can gain their favor and approval, and intangible, which you will never receive, because as that person knows you are chasing their approval and validation, that makes it where you are going to, again, give this person power over you. And that is one of those things that many Black people do in their hopes to gain. They think that getting this social favor will make them more valuable in American society. And again, it doesn't make you more valuable in American society. It actually makes you less than, because you're selling yourself for worth less than you're worth. You're selling your dignity for less than it's worth. You're selling your worth for less than it's worth. And again, you're sitting there thinking, oh, if I go out here and be so-called nice, this person will see how good I am. And if they see how good I am, then that means I have value. That is the whole kindness to weakness in a nutshell that has been messing up Black people. Oh, if these whites and non-Blacks see my value, see my worth, then they'll see me as valuable. But the Most High sees your value, and he sees it as having greater value than what the white supremacist says. And that's where we have to get our mind on, partially. I mean, I say get your mind on the Most High, getting it on his perception of you and not the white supremacist perception of you, because the white supremacist leverages your low self-esteem in order to gain power over you. And as long as you keep chasing his validation and approval, what you're going to do is he's going to keep holding it over you like a carrot and keep having you chase him, seeking his approval. That was what the core foundation of that show, The Jeffersons, was all about. You had your George Jefferson, who had achieved all of this success. Unfortunately, he didn't understand his self-worth, and that's why he was chasing Mr. Whitendale and white people, and he didn't understand his value as a Black man. Here was the successful Black man, and the joke was he was keeping the chasing white validation and approval, And because he chased white validation and approval, he never got white validation or approval. He never got respect, and he never got respect because he did not respect himself. So when I look at the Black community, again, we have a mindset problem, and this mindset problem is we are looking to gain favor and approval from others, and we're also thinking that we need to be kind in order to gain favor and approval from others. No, if you want to get respect, you have to stand up for yourself. And yes, that may offend some people, it may upset some people, it may anger some people, but the whole thing is that when you're out here and you stand up for yourself, you are going to get respect, and that intangible is something you're going to receive because you are saying that I am worth something, I am valuable, I am somebody, and I am not going to devalue myself or sell myself short to gain your favor and approval. No, my value is not based on your perception of me. It is based on what God sees. It is based on what I see. And I see value in myself. And again, that is what a healthy man or woman thinks. They understand that I don't have to be kind to somebody to get respect, but the way I get respect is by asserting myself. And if there are those who want to disrespect me, I will take my respect by either walking away from those individuals, or if this individual wants to do harm, I will defend myself. And again, defending yourself is part of a healthy mindset, because if you value your life, you are going to start talking about defending yourself in the case of a threat. And again, defending yourself is going from doing things that are considered benign, like asking those hard questions, like many people do when you go into their communities. That's defending yourself. It's not just taking up weapons. It's also, again, part of establishing the boundary is saying, hey, what are you doing here? Hey, why are you here? What is your purpose? And letting people know that they're not allowed to come into your territory and do whatever they please. I mean, if you own a home, you have a territory right there, and inside of that home, you are letting people know that if they want to come into your home, they have to follow your rules. So if I come into somebody's home, I understand that they are giving me permission to come into their home, but I need to show respect for that space by treating those people by abiding by their rules. So if that person says, I don't want you wearing shoes on my carpet, that means I leave my shoes at the door or I leave. If that person has a rule for their refrigerator where they say I can't go into their refrigerator, I am to wait for them to go into their refrigerator and let them serve me. Again, respecting the rules of a man's home is important because this is his territory. And we as Black people need to understand that as our community, it is our territory. And we need to start setting rules for ourselves and how people engage inside of our community. Because for too long, people have thought they can just come in here and do whatever they please. And because people feel like they can do whatever they please, that's why you get invaders like that urban terrorist who shot up the top supermarket in Buffalo. And you need to understand, when you have weak boundaries, this is what people do, because invaders, they see you as weak. And when an invader sees you as weak, you have to understand he's not looking to go out here and just exploit you. He's looking to destroy you. And I'm going to go back to the Roman Empire. When the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths saw that the Romans were weak, what did they do? They were looking to invade that territory, and they were looking to invade that territory because they saw that the leaders were weak. They saw that the people were caught up in hedonism. They saw that the people were caught up in foolishness. And that's what happens when you are weak. Invaders come in and invaders wage war on you to take the resources out of a community because they realize, hey, I don't need to, I'm not going to deal with exploiting these individuals. No, I'm going to take everything that they've got. And that's what happened at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. You had all of these kind Black people caught up in their hedonism, disconnected leadership, no sense of boundaries, no sense of structure. And this invader came in looking to wage war. And that's the thing that many Black people are not picking up as related to incidents like Dylan Roof or the Tops supermarket, or even, I say, Kyle Rittenhouse. These invaders are coming in because they see you as weak. They see you caught up in foolishness. They see leadership with no direction. They see no sense of order, no sense of boundaries, no sense of structure. And when people outside of the community see weakness, they are going to exploit it in the quickest way. And some see the quickest way as waging war. And that's what this shooter was looking to do, wage war in that Buffalo Black community. And the same thing in that Charleston church with Dylan Roof. And the same thing, I believe, with Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha. You have invaders looking in, looking to wage war because there was no leadership to set order and no leadership to set structure in that community. And when you don't have strong leadership to set territorial lines, you set yourself up for an invasion where people wage war to destroy the lives of everybody in that community and take and plunder that community until it is no more. And that's the big problem with Black people's, again, kindness whole narrative. I'm going to be kind and friendly. I'm going to be nice to everyone. Yes, there's a time to be nice to people and diplomatic to people, and that is when they are showing you respect in a diplomatic situation. But if they're not showing you respect, you set those boundaries, and you set those boundaries hard. That is something every other community goes out here and does. They take care of their community by setting those hard boundaries. The leadership sets order for that community. The leadership sets structure for that community. And the leadership establishes standards for that community. And the leadership also establishes how money is spent in that community. And these are standards that Black people don't really focus on, because a lot of these codependent people are looking for hugs. They're looking to get their emotional needs met. And you're not going to get your emotional needs met from dealing with enemies and adversaries. Again, an adversary is not looking to show you love and give you a hug. No, that adversary is looking to kill you, and they're not looking for a hug. They're looking to get what they want. And the whole thing is, if you don't look to protect yourself, you're going to be a victim of this predator. And that's the whole frame of thinking I want Black people to start understanding, is this whole kindness approach. This is the whole frame of thinking that has messed up Black people for centuries. And we've got to come out of this thinking into a frame of thinking about territory, boundaries, and community. And I really, again, want to thank the brother of logic and common sense for really breaking down this whole concept of territory. He is a brilliant guy, and you really need to sub to his channel. I mean, that video right there is a masterpiece. So it's one that I'm gonna go over and try to go find and share the link to you guys in a minute. See if he's got it up here, because this video was a masterpiece. But while I go look for this video, I want you guys to sign up with the John Henry Death Store Kickstarter. That's true, man of action. Yes, there are divisive opportunists who look to capitalize on dissension. You got to really look out for those. So I want you guys to head over to the pre-launch page for John Haynes Death's Door Kickstarter and sign up, because I'm getting ready to launch that this June. And I have just found Brother of Logic and Common Senses, what it means to establish your territory. And this video is a masterpiece. I'm going to leave a link to it in the chat, so all you guys can go out here and check that out once I wrap up this stream. I mean, this is a video. It's going to open up your eyes and really get you to wake up and understand the concept of territory, understand the concept of boundaries. And when you connect it to what happened at the Top Supermarket in Buffalo, you'll understand that when Black folks didn't establish that territory line, that's why this guy was able to come in and do harm to Black people. I mean, this is what happens when you are kind, too kind. People take your kindness for weakness, and they take advantage of you, and they take advantage of the situation. So I'm going to get ready to wrap up tonight's stream. But before I do wrap up tonight's stream, I want everybody to head over to Amazon.com. I'm having a really slow month on book sales. I need 2 more to get 20. And I'm asking everybody to pick up a copy of Isis Legacy and Eastern Horror of the Hyena Woman on Amazon by clicking the link in the chat. It helps me stay on the air. So I'm asking everybody to pick up some of these action-packed adventures in the SJS Direct universe and help the channel stay on the air. And I'm also, again, asking everybody to, again, join the mailing list for the pre-launch of John Haynes at Death's Door, which is coming to Kickstarter this June. And that's something that's very important, again, to the channel. We have 53 in the chat and 38 likes. Let's get the likes up to about 40. That would be greatly appreciated. I want to show you my balls. Look at them. They're silky. That'll be greatly appreciated. Get it to 40 or 50. Let's get the likes up. That also helps the channel. So that's also greatly appreciated. And I'm also asking everybody to, again, drop a Cash App if you can. I'm asking for too much, I'm thinking sometimes, but that's what I'm asking everybody to do, because it helps the channel and helps things out. But I want to thank everybody for coming to tonight's stream. I hope you'll be there for next week's stream. And I want everybody to have a good evening and have a good night. Thank you all, and have a great evening.